Great cause there. Let's jump into the show tonight, man. Let's get into it. As we've got, first and foremost, let's hit the regular season MVP. If you guys weren't in the other night, we talked about the Super Bowl odds, betting odds for Super Bowl champion, the Green Bay Packers coming in at a plus 2,000. We also talked about the NFC champion run there. They are, I think, fifth on the list here at a plus 1,000. So you can kind of look at that and say, okay, they're considered the fifth best team in the NFC as it sits right now. There's a lot of different ways you can look at it, strength of schedule, different metrics you can use. You guys know how I feel about strength of schedule. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to strength of schedule, to be honest with you, because it's amazing. That's going into the season. We talk about strength of schedule and everybody, they got an easy schedule. And then halfway through the season, nobody even talks about it anymore because the teams have changed so much. The coaching staffs have already made adjustments to the game plans. There's already been 2 or 3 key injuries for specific teams, and everything kind of goes out the window. So I try not to spend a whole lot of time on that stuff, but I do like looking at the betting odds and just kind of seeing where the sharp money is. Now, NFC North division winner, again, a quick recap. The Packers are predicted to finish second there. Detroit Lions are plus 135. The Packers are plus 260. Then you got the Vikings at plus 360. And no surprise, the Bears are at plus 450. Now, let's get into the MVP. We're going to talk about Offensive Player of the Year. We're going to talk about Offensive Rookie of the Year. And what I did was try to find some of these awards where Green Bay Packers players were specifically mentioned. So starting with regular season MVP here, Lamar Jackson is the favorite to win MVP at a plus 550. Then it's Joe Burrow plus 600 along with Josh Allen plus 600. Obviously, Josh Allen winning the MVP last year. Patrick Mahomes coming in at plus 700 with Jaden Daniels plus 700. That one kind of took me off guard a little bit. Now, listen, I'm a big Jaden Daniels fan, a big Jaden Daniels believer. I think he's the real deal. I could also see him taking a step back like C.J. Stroud did last year. But nonetheless, Jalen Hurts, it drops off significantly here to a plus 1,600 for Jalen Hurts. Justin Herbert, a plus 1,800. And then you got our very own Jordan Love, plus 2,500. And he is tied with Brock Purdy, Caleb Williams, C.J. Stroud in that tier there at plus 2,500. So the reason I wanted to bring that up is, how does Vegas see Jordan Love projecting this year? When you look at it, I want to say the over-under the other night, I can't remember the exact number, but it kind of caught us off guard a little bit when we were talking about it with Jacob. But essentially what this is saying is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th projected player to potentially win the MVP this year. Now, all those are quarterbacks, right, leading the way. It looks like the first running back comes in with Saquon Barkley at a plus 4,000. And that's the only running back that made the list here in terms of MVP candidates from a betting standpoint. So, again, they're treating Jordan Love as a top 10 quarterback, right? Now, this is where I got to back up a little bit, and you guys know how I feel about this. I think Jordan Love is kind of the floor is right around the 15 mark, maybe the 13 mark. And I think the ceiling could be top 3. So, the fact that they've got him right there in that spot, that kind of meets that sweet spot of where I've got him somewhat sitting. So I don't have a problem with that number there. I want to know what you guys think in the chat. Let me know. Do you think that's too high for Jordan Love, too low for Jordan Love? Pretty much projecting him to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think 8th. Yeah, in the MVP running here. What do you guys think in the chat? Do you think that's too high or too low for Jordan Love? Now, obviously, it's going to come down to the weapons around these players. Lamar Jackson is just a highlight reel. We talked about it last year. He should have won the Super Bowl last year. Or not the Super Bowl, but the MVP last year. I don't know how Josh Allen won the MVP over him. I really, really don't. But it is what it is. You look at Lamar Jackson and what he did throwing the football. Shoo-wee, man. He was on fire last year. Holmes, MD1, says, a touch too low in my opinion. Okay, I got you. So I don't want to put words in the Holmes' mouth, but he's probably thinking top 5-ish, right? Is probably be the sweet spot there. Coach Lynn says seems about right. I think that's kind of where I sit, Coach, because again, you're talking about how good a player can be. You're talking about ceiling. You're talking about floor. This is right there in the middle of where I think Jordan Love could be for sure. Greg Rice says, Clayton, I was told there would be no math. Sorry about that, buddy. Sorry about that. Clint says he'll be better this year. I completely agree with that. He's going to be able to utilize that leg, right? be able to drive the football, also be able to create plays with his legs, moving out of the pocket. I think they'll be under center a lot more, running a little more boot scheme, a little more play action. That's going to make the running game even more effective, in my opinion, especially with duo. So yeah, I think Jordan Love is going to be better this year. Now the question is how much better, right? And to me, people immediately start thinking yardage. They start thinking touchdown passes. They start thinking rushing yards. For me, it's that turnover differential, man. It's protecting the football, not throwing interceptions. That's what's going to determine whether the Packers take the next step in this whole rebuild process, which I personally think the Super Bowl window is open. I really do. And yeah, as you could see over the last few days and really over the last week, a lot of injuries that weren't mentioned as much during the season have kind of unfolded here, and the veil has been lifted, and you find out that you had people like Kenny Clark battling an injury since week one. We knew about Jordan Love and the 3 injuries he dealt with. We already knew about Jaden Reed. We kind of talked about that a little earlier in the offseason. You had Lucas Van Ness that had to deal with that broken thumb, right? A lot of different things coming into factor there. And then you had obviously Jair Alexander. You know, it's amazing how the Jair Alexander talk, it goes from we can't win a ball game without him to we don't need him, cut him, right? And obviously the truth is somewhere in the middle usually. And the reality is we did pretty damn good without him last year. You know, I mean, the defense took a step forward. With that being said, the defense was better with him on the field, but that's just kind of how I see that whole situation there. So Coach Lynn talks about the talent around him. Yeah, and that's a big factor in these, right? And that's the thing. Like you look at Joe Burrow, right, at a plus 600. He's got the second best odds to win MVP. We all know the reality is if one of his top receivers go down, like if Jamar Chase goes down with a season-ending injury, you could pretty much kiss that MVP goodbye, right? Like, yeah, I mean, it's most likely not going to happen. So a lot of luck goes into these as well. Like with Josh Allen, it's a little bit different, obviously, with the ability to run the football. It was the rushing touchdowns, I think, that kind of sent him over the edge for MVP last year. But again, I still think looking at what Lamar Jackson did. Now, I know people aren't talking about it enough because I had no clue he had that kind of year, to be honest with you. If Jordan Love had the year that Lamar Jackson had, man, Packers probably would have won 15 games, you know. He had that solid of a year for sure. So again, Jordan Love coming in 8th at plus 2,500 with the MVP race there, regular season MVP. Let's go on to Offensive Player of the Year. And you guys know this is kind of that award that's for players that are not quarterbacks, right? Now you'll see people like Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, some of the bigger names, they'll sneak in here as well. I think it is kind of silly how this stuff's voted on. I don't know all the inner workings of it, but it just seems like, okay, MVP is set aside for mostly quarterback. Offensive Player of the Year, the rule is, okay, let's try not to allow a quarterback to win this award. You know, it's just weird how the voting works on that. But nonetheless, Offensive Player of the Year, Saquon Barkley plus 650, Jamar Chase plus 900, Jahmyr Gibbs plus 1,200, Nico Collins and Puka Nacua both at plus 1,600, Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson, Bijan Robinson all at plus 1,800. Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Actually, no, just Christian McCaffrey and CeeDee Lamb are plus 2,000. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyreek Hill, with Amon-Ra St. Brown being plus 2,500, Tyreek Hill plus 3,000. Then we got our very own Josh Jacobs at plus 3,500. So when you kind of go through there and let's zero in on the running backs themselves, okay? So you got Saquon Barkley 1, Jahmyr Gibbs 2, Derrick Henry 3, Bijan Robinson 4, Christian McCaffrey 5, and then you've got Josh Jacobs in the number 6 spot in terms of running backs that are in the running for Offensive Player of the Year. So you kind of catch the theme of what I'm looking at here, right? Is like where are these Green Bay Packers ranking, and positionally, let's kind of see where they're projected to finish this year. Now, do I think Josh Jacobs has a realistic shot to win Offensive Player of the Year? I honestly don't, because I don't think Matt LaFleur wants to run him into the ground. I think if the ultimate goal is Super Bowl, then the last thing you need, or the last thing you can have happen, is Josh Jacobs get banged up because you're overusing him, right? And I know in the past that was the big argument with Aaron Jones, like, hey, he needs to get more carries. But, the reality is, how many times did Aaron Jones get hurt? Even when he was healthy, it's like, okay, we should have got him more carries. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, he's banged up. So I don't think Josh Jacobs has a realistic chance of winning, or I don't want to say a realistic chance. I don't think he has a big chance of winning Offensive Player of the Year, but it's only because I don't think he'll get as many carries as he did last year. I think we'll kind of shift focus a little bit there. But nonetheless, it's nice to see him right there hovering around that top 5 mark when it comes to the running backs that are mentioned in here on this list. So trying to see on down the line, there's no more Packers listed there. You get the first quarterback coming in for Offensive Player of the Year at Joe Burrow plus 4,000 and Lamar Jackson along with Josh Allen as well, all those at a plus 4,000. So let's see here. Respect Oranges. Nope, we need Lloyd here to help Wilson with carries. Yeah, and see, that's the other thing too, is like you want to go ahead and get Lloyd acclimated to this system. You want to get him as many carries as possible. I'll tell you what I look forward to. I look forward to a handful of games this year that hopefully, the Green Bay Packers jump out to a big lead and you get Marshawn Lloyd some mop-up time. That would be great. Maybe in the fourth quarter you get to pull Jordan Love, get Malik Willis out there, preferably before the trade deadline. Who knows? If you get Malik Willis in there and he continues to do what he did last year, you may have somebody come calling. That could happen. You guys know how I feel about that. Anything less than a second-round pick, I'd rather have Malik Willis as the backup just to know, okay, we're good there. If Jordan goes down, we can win tough ball games. So going to be fun to see how all that unfolds as well. Holmes says, if Lloyd can stay healthy and does not fumble, heck, yeah. I'm with you on that. United Base says, my vote is for Henry. He made a bet with Adam Sandler. If he gets 2,000 yards, he will be in the movie. That's absolutely awesome. Looking forward to when is Happy Gilmore dropping, guys? Happy Gilmore 2. I got to watch. Even if it sucks, that's one I've got to watch just out of respect for the game, out of respect for Adam Sandler and the original, obviously, was just a phenomenal movie. Clint, the armchair quarterback, says the price is wrong, Bob. That's all right. I want to say it's dropping in July, Bates. If you can let me know in the chat just to confirm. There it is, July 25th. That's what I was thinking, somewhere around that time. I did see something drop where Eminem's in it. That was kind of funny, seeing him making a cameo appearance there. So that's kind of cool. All right, let's move on to Offensive Rookie of the Year. Okay. No surprise here. Ashton Gianti leading the way at a plus 275. Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick, coming in second at plus 350. Then it drops off pretty significantly with Travis Hunter at a plus 900. All right. Tyler Shuck, plus 1,000. How about that, guys? How about Tyler Shuck? Really proud of the fact that Tyler Shuck was drafted as high as he was, because I feel like we were talking about it earlier than most people were. And it's not because I watched the tape and decided Tyler Shuck's going to be an NFL quarterback. It's because Greg Cosell was just raving over him. And when I heard Greg Cosell talking about Tyler Shuck, it's like, okay, there has to be something here. And then immediately following that podcast with Ross Tucker, where he was kind of raving over Tyler Shuck, all of a sudden he said, in the next show, he said, I got several text messages from executives across the league going, you're spot on. He's the real deal type thing. So now whether he goes on to the NFL and plays well, only time will tell, right? But Tyler Shuck being the second quarterback with the highest Offensive Rookie of the Year chances at a plus 1,000, pretty darn telling there. Tet McMillan coming in at a plus 1,100. You guys remember when Tet McMillan fell? Or leading up to the draft, it was just all of a sudden nobody liked Tet McMillan. Oh, he doesn't like to watch tape and blah 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 blah, and then ends up getting drafted high. And now obviously he's right here towards the top. If you want to consider Travis Hunter more of a cornerback than a wide receiver, Tet McMillan's the top wide receiver at plus 1,100. He could be second if the Jacksonville Jaguars decide to use Travis Hunter as a wide receiver more than a corner. Next, you got Omarion Hampton plus 1,300. And then look at this, guys. Shedeur Sanders, plus 1,500. I think a lot of what that has to do with Shedeur Sanders is low expectations, right? He sunk out of sight in the draft when he fought to the 4th or the 5th round, whatever it was, went to Cleveland. Nobody's expecting him to, I don't think, win that job over Dylan Gabriel or any other quarterback that's already in that room. But on top of that, I don't think they expect Cleveland to be be in a good enough position, for them to do anything successful. So Shedeur Sanders comes in, and all of a sudden they win more games than they're projected. I don't know what their win-loss total is projected-wise, but I could see it being one of those things where it's like, wow, look at what he did with Cleveland, and how bad Cleveland is. Just something to think about there. Next, you got Quinshawn Judkins, running back out of Ohio State at a plus 1,800. R.J. Harvey plus 2,000. Travion Henderson plus 2,200. It's pretty wild. Quinshawn Judkins and his teammate, Travion Henderson, are just 2 spots apart, right? Plus 1,800 to a plus 2,200. Then you got Emeka Egbuka. You guys know I was very, very vocal about Egbuka. I would love to have had him there in the first round with the Packers' first-round pick. But obviously, we landed on Matthew Golden. Pretty cool that both of those are a plus 2,200. So Matthew Golden, Green Bay Packers, first wide receiver selected in the first round since 2002, comes in with the Offensive Rookie of the Year odds at a plus 2,200. Everybody fire off in the chat real quick. Too high or too low on that? How do you feel about that? Because when you look at Matthew Golden, we just got through talking about Shedeur Sanders and how, hey, look, he's got an opportunity to win that starting job from Dillon Gabriel, or whoever else is in that quarterback room, and you can kind of come screaming from the back of the pack. Matthew Golden, I mean, if he does everything, he don't even have to do everything correct. If he maximizes his opportunities and he plays decent throughout camp, throughout starting next week with mini camp, right? That's coming up here on the 10th, mandatory mini camp. If he starts to turn heads, he goes into training camp and he puts on a show there. I could see Matt LaFleur going, okay, you know what? Let's put him out here on the edge. Let's put him in the Z. Let's put him in the X from time to time. Let's let him stretch the field. Let's let him be that Christian Watson burner, right? If you go that route, I love putting low amounts of money on Green Bay Packer bets where it's like, all right, man, let's just take a handful of them, sprinkle a little action on it where it's like, first of all, you never bet a dime that you can't afford to lose. I'm going to say that again. Never bet a single cent that you can't afford to lose. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. When I gamble, when I put action on a game, when I put action on any kind of prop or anything, and I personally like live betting games, I just absolutely love it. I am of the mindset that I am giving this money to this sports book. All right. That's how I do that. I don't go in and go, okay, well, if I put 5 or 6 here, I'll definitely hit on one. Let's bet the farm. Let's spread it all out. That's no. That's how you end up divorced and living in a ditch. All right. Let's just gamble responsibly, please. But what I like to do is find multiple bets like this where it's pretty darn good odds and put a little bit of action on each of them. And it gives you some extra rooting interest for that player, And in some cases, I like to try to find somebody in the AFC as well. Like in this case, Ashton Gianti, the odds aren't that good. But when you look at the bad odds down here, like, if Pittsburgh hadn't signed Aaron Rodgers, I'd be looking at Will Howard. Pretty sure he went to Pittsburgh. That would be a fun one at a plus 4,000. Like, you never know, right? Our boy Jaden Higgins, Tim's boy Jaden Higgins, right? Dillon Gabriel. That might be one. Like, look at Shedeur Sanders plus 1,500. Then you look at Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel was drafted higher than Shedeur Sanders. Dillon Gabriel's coming in at plus 6,000. Maybe sprinkle a little action in on that, right? You guys know how I felt about Jalen Milroe. Now, he ended up going – where did he go to? Remind me, guys. Was it Seattle? I'm trying to think. Where was it that Jalen Milroe ended up being drafted? I'm trying to think. Let me Google it real quick. It's going to bother me. If somebody gets up in the chat, throw it up there real quick. Dillon Gabriel. Where is he at? Not Dillon Gabriel. I'm sorry, not Dillon Gabriel. What am I doing? Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe is who I was thinking of. Sorry. Got too many quarterbacks on the brain. Yeah, Seattle. That's right. Yeah, Seahawks. Thank you, Bates. That's one. They got Sam Darnold, right, is the starting quarterback. Keep your eye on that one because at a plus 6, what if Sam Darnold goes down? Is it worth it to risk just a little sprinkle on that one? It could be. It could be. I think Jalen Milroe's a freak. I really do. The reason his numbers took a dip last year is because he didn't connect on the deep ball like he did in 2023. And Jalen Milroe he's everything you want in a quarterback and a leader. some people question the processing with the interceptions he threw last year, and I can understand that. But if the right quarterback coach gets a hold of him, I would not be surprised if they struck gold there in Seattle for on down the road, obviously. But anyway, Matthew Golden at plus 2,200. I'm excited about that. I think that would be worth sprinkling a little bit on. Because, again, like Ashton Gianti, yeah, he could run away with it. He's going to be the focal point with the Raiders. But you never know, guys. You know, I mean, especially if they run a young guy into the ground too, right? Cam Ward, does he have enough tools around him in Tennessee? Travis Hunter, can his body take the beating that it's going to take playing both sides of the ball to whatever extent they decide to do that? Tyler Shuck, Ted McMillan. I think it'd be worth it to sprinkle a little bit there on Matthew Golden for sure. So anyway, there he is, Matthew Golden. I think it's pretty cool. That's the first time in a while, it feels like, that we had a player in the running that high anyway for Offensive Rookie of the Year. You know, I was thinking maybe Christian Watson. Could have been Jaden Reed. Could have been Jaden Reed too. I don't think he would have been quite that high with Jaden Reed being drafted in the second round. So nonetheless, how many receivers are over top of Matthew Golden here? Let's count Travis Hunter as one just for craps and giggles here. Travis Hunter 1, Ted McMillan 2, Emeka Egbuka 3, Matthew Golden 4. So he is the fourth best odds to win Offensive Rookie of the Year amongst wide receiver. That's a pretty good place to be. Pretty darn good place to be. And all the reports coming out of camp got me excited. Jordan Love used the word polished. He looked really polished, right? Romeo Dobbs was speaking very glowingly of him, you know. It's going to be fun to see what Matthew Golden does. He's definitely got the right attitude. There's no two ways about that. All right, moving along. Comeback Player of the Year. I'm going to rattle these off without the odds real quick, okay? Yeah, we'll do them in order. Dak Prescott, Aiden Hutchinson, Christian McCaffrey, Trevor Lawrence, J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy for Comeback Player of the Year. Am I the only one that thinks that's just absolutely silly that he's in the running for Comeback Player of the Year? He didn't play a single snap last year, and he gets hurt, and they're going to list him as a potential Comeback Player of the Year. Like when I hear comeback, I think a player who has played in the league, right, and taking a decent amount of snaps. They've had a setback, and then they have a comeback. How can you come back from something you never had? Like that's a little weird to me. I don't know. Am I wrong there, guys? Let me know in the chat. It seems strange. Like because he got hurt as a rookie and didn't see any action, they're saying he could win Comeback Player of the Year. That's just, yeah. Looks like Greg Rice agrees. It's just really weird, right? It's strange. I don't know. He says J.J. McCarthy should not be there, as you say. Yeah, it's I don't know. United Bates, I agree, Clay. I think Hutch has a great shot at this. I think you're spot on there, man. Aiden Hutchinson, my God. Now, here's the thing, though. I haven't paid attention to the reports, and in no way, shape, or form am I wishing ill will on Aiden Hutchinson or any other player. I don't care how much I hate the team, hate the fan base. I would never wish injury or a setback for any player, right, in football. Well, that being said, Aiden Hutchinson, man, that was a nasty injury. And it seems like everybody's just kind of assuming, he's just going to be right back to where he was. I mean, this wasn't like an ACL, right? This wasn't it wasn't even just a broken, like he shredded that leg. I remember that thing looking like linguine. And I don't mean to make light of the situation, and we're just all kind of assuming it's not just Bates. It was me too. Like when I seen like, yeah, that makes sense. And I keep having to step back and I see the image. You guys know what I'm talking about, that screen grab on Twitter where his leg was wrapped around the other guy's leg in the opposite direction, right? It's just, I don't know, man. That's going to be a tough comeback, I would imagine. Coach Lynn says Hutch does not look the same to me. I don't know how anybody could, man. That reminds me of when I was a kid. I have a very, very fuzzy memory. Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. You have these memories from childhood where it's like around a certain age. And I think I was about 4 or 5. One of my earliest memories there was a bad accident on what we called the new road back home, back in the sticks. And they called it that because, it was the road that was created to make traffic flow a little bit easier from the old road. So we had the old road and the new road. I don't know, maybe you guys have the same thing in your small towns, but anyway, on the new road, there was a bad accident. My parents stopped, and I remember it vividly. My mom holding me and seeing a guy that they pulled out of a car and laid on the tailgate of a truck, and his leg, as soon as I seen Aiden Hutchinson's leg that day, that's the first thing I went back to, was like, man, I remember it. And I remember thinking, they're probably going to have to amputate, not as a kid, but like looking back on it, it's like, did they have to amputate that? Like, you just about have to, you know? That's, maybe I'm overblowing the Aiden Hutchinson injury, but boy, oh boy, did it seem like, it just seemed like, I don't know how people could come back from that quickly, you know? It just seems like it would take a little while for him to recover. As United Bates says, yeah, that's a good point for sure. And again, if anybody can do it, it's Aiden Hutchinson, though. That dude's a dog. I remember him the year that he came out in the draft. He was the number one prospect on my board. It wasn't even close, and he was I want to say he was. It's rare you typically get a handful of players that are in the negatives in a good way on our board, because you guys know the low number wins. Like last year, I don't know if I can get this off without spilling my water here, but let's see if we can do it. Like last year's draft, looking at the draft board, we had Ashton Gianti at a minus 1.2. We had Abdul Carter at a minus 0.3. Okay, those are the two best players in the draft, in my opinion. I remember the year, and every year you get just a couple of people, a couple of players that are in that range, right? They're in that range where you broke into the negative mark, and those are okay. Those are the elite players in the draft. The year that Aiden Hutchinson came out, it was not just a negative, but he got past, he would have been one tier higher than the first negative tier. So he was like a negative 5.8 or something crazy. Just an absolute dog. He was just a slam dunk pick. No two ways about that. So, yeah, if anybody can do it, it's him for sure, though. I think many people could have just called it quits there, though, with that injury he had. Moving along here, JJ McCarthy, we talked about Rasheed Rice, Tua Tagovailoa, Brandon Ayuk, Chris Godwin. Hey, look, it's Max Crosby. Guy played 97% of the snaps last year, and he's in the running for comeback player of the year. Somebody explain that to me. Like, he was just bad last year. I guess if you're that bad, you can. I guess that's what the award is, right? I guess it is. I think more along the lines of injury, because I remember, Damar Hamlin pretty much lost his life on the field and was brought back to life, to the best of my knowledge. To me, that qualifies for comeback player of the year, right? If anything does. You think of trying to think, there was a couple of different players too that got hurt. Was it Joe Flacco? No, Joe Flacco was kind of signed. He was out of football, got signed in. I think he won comeback player of the year. But typically, you kind of associate it with injuries. But yeah, I guess Max Crosby. I just think it's funny that for the people that think he was so dominant last year, why is he in a running for comeback player of the year if he was so good? You know what I mean? It's just still mind-boggling how many fans just thought he was absolutely elite last year. But that's why you got to be careful with PFF grades. Anthony Richardson plus 3,000. I think that fits the mold. Of course, he's got shoulder injuries now, right? Stephon Diggs, he's probably still on a boat somewhere, but he's plus 5,000. Chris Olave plus 5,000. Tank Dell plus 5,000. There's a perfect example. Tank Dell, horrible injury he sustained down there in Houston. So that's one that's kind of prime for a comeback player of the year. You got Christian Kirk and Rashid Shaheed at plus 7,500. Dre Greenlaw would be a good one, plus 10,000, right? And then you got our very own Christian Watson at plus 10,000. Now, here's a problem I got with Christian Watson being on this list. Not that I don't want him on the list, but let's say he comes back, early November, the first week of November. Is that enough time for him to compile enough numbers if he just comes out and doesn't miss a beat to win comeback player of the year? To me, that seems like that's – now, again, this is one of those bets, though, where plus 10,000. This is like Kevin Malone on The Office, right? And John Cougar Mellencamp. Probably be worth it, put a little bit on it just in case. That'd be fun to root for, right? But I just don't see that being realistic, because he's just going to be missing too much time. As Greg Rice says here, Watson will be out too long. I agree. I don't think, and even when he comes back, Greg, I don't think it's going to be something where as soon as he comes back, all right, you're playing 40 snaps a game. You know what I mean? It'll probably be easing him back in at 10 snaps. At least that's how I want him to handle it. I don't want him to get him back in there and just, all of a sudden rush him back too quickly and get him hurt again or even hurt his confidence in that regard, right? Kind of build up some momentum moving back up there. So again, there's comeback player of the year. Christian Watson is mentioned in that conversation. Moving along, most regular season passing yards. So we talked about Jordan Love being 8th in the MVP odds. All right, let's talk about regular season passing yards. Number 1, Dak Prescott at -115, along with C.J. Stroud, the same -115. Then it drops to a +500 for Joe Burrow, +900 for Patrick Mahomes, +1100 for Jared Goff, +1400 for Matthew Stafford, Baker Mayfield, and Brock Purdy. Then you got Josh Allen +1800 and Jordan Love +1800. Now, we all know Josh Allen runs the football a lot more than Jordan Love, but still, anytime the reigning NFL MVP, whether you think he should have won it or it should have been Lamar Jackson, anytime you've got the reigning MVP and your quarterback in Jordan Love with the same odds on having the most regular season passing yards, that's a pretty good spot to be in, right? So if you look at that, they're saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, tied for 9th. So in MVP voting, we're talking about being 7th. In most passing yards, they're saying 9th. You're seeing a theme here, right? Am I the only one that's looking at this way? Like, it seems like Vegas. And again, whether you're a gambler or not, I think we would all agree they know what the hell they're doing setting these lines. And this is ESPN bet here, but we know how everything kind of ties in together. You're seeing Jordan Love being looked at as a top 10 quarterback, are you not? And it's funny because when you hear some of the pundits talk, you hear some of the national sports media talk, they seem like they're down on Jordan for the most part. But then when it's time to put your money where your mouth is and you go to the betting lines and you look at the early odds, seems like they're kind of high on Jordan Love. Yeah. So curious to see how that turns out, because if Jordan Love does come out and he's top 10 in passing yards and he's borderline top 5 in MVP voting, boys, I'm thinking we had a pretty damn good year, So I'm really, really excited about that. Really excited about seeing what he can do, and especially with the other additions. You got, we talk about Matthew Golden, right? And we've talked, pretty extensively on this show how effective Jaden Reed has been, albeit just another one of those conversations where some people talk like he's just a bad wide receiver, and it is simply not the case. You got Romeo Doubs in a contract year, so he's going to be as motivated as he's ever been. He seems like he's in a good place. Matt LaFleur and him are in a good place, so I don't think he's going to be hindered in terms of snaps or targets or anything like that. I don't think Matt ever tried to take targets away from people, I think it's more about, hey, what team are we facing this week? Are they heavy man? Are they heavy zone? Are they heavy cover 3? Are they heavy cover 2? Are they playing match top principles? Do they like to load the box? Are they weak against the run? All these things, right? That's what comes into play for the scheme and the game plan he puts in and week out, rather than just saying, okay, we need to get that player some targets. And that's why I don't like the whole number 1 wide receiver talk. That's when I think number 1 wide receiver, it's great having Devontae Adams, and I would love to have him back on the team for the right price. There's no doubt about that. But I think of that 49ers game where Aaron Rodgers was forcing the ball to him there at the end of the game with the wide open Allen Lazard running across the field. But you know what? That's what a true number 1 wide receiver does. You target him when the game's on the line, whether it's double coverage or not, you're giving your guy a shot. That's typically what number 1 receivers, those are the type of looks they get. So that's why I'm kind of excited that the receiver room is so cheap. And I feel like we've got some underrated players. I think Matthew Golden could fit that mold. Savion Williams may be better than Matthew Golden. We don't know, right? Obviously, the hands are the big thing you worry about with Savion. And maybe the route running, albeit when we've seen the tape, I feel like his route running is pretty decent for a raw player coming out of college. So, you got Romeo Doubs. If Tay Wicks returns to that rookie form, that would be great, or just it trends in that direction. You got Tucker Kraft, who I think is definitely a top 10 tight end, possibly a top 5 tight end in the league. Yeah. As Greg said here, how about Kraft, Reed, and Golden, right? I mean, there's a lot to be excited about for Packer fans this year, man. Last year I was very excited about this team. 2022 or 2023 was, I remember the theme being they expected us to finish dead last in the NFC North. There were so many people that were just, oh, there's no way the Packers, it's just, and it was like, okay, we're playing with the house's money. Let's go. Last year, it was, man, we created some serious momentum, especially Jordan Love. I don't think people realize how good his numbers were the second half of the 2023 season. Like it was what? Was it 18 touchdowns and 1 interception? Something crazy, right? 71 or 72% completion percentage. Guys, that's stuff that Aaron Rodgers didn't have a touchdown interception ratio that good in his best MVP year during that 9-game span that Jordan Love played in, all while winning a playoff game too, as first year as a starter. So, yeah, just getting some confirmation here. Yeah, Respect Orange is 18-1. Yep, there you go, man. It's wild. So, again, you got to, Solder says it right here, keep Love upright and healthy while he is hitting 65% plus of his passes will organically solve the Packers' number 1 wide receiver talk. And, here's the thing too, Solder. I don't know if I expect Jordan Love to hit that 65% mark. I got to do it. I don't have any help in here tonight, but we're going to do it because even if it's a little bit of a delay, you got to do it. It's just tradition around here, right? You got to hit it.
65%. 65%. That's what we
So keep Love upright and healthy while he's hitting the 65% of his passes will organically solve the Packers' number 1 wide receiver talk. Completely agree with that, Soder. However, I don't really expect him to hit that 75% mark. If he does, great. But to me, it feels like Jordan is probably between 60 to 63%. We're kind of splitting hairs here. And the reason I say that's because Aaron Rodgers, right? Arguably the best thrower of the football in the history of the game. His career completion percentage was 65%. That's kind of the up here, right? So if Jordan Love, like you said, if he hits 65%, 65%, and he of completion percentage, and let's say he 30 touchdowns and less than 10 interceptions, Packers are in a good spot because Josh Jacobs is going to do his thing, and that leads us into the next odds talk here.